So conventional wisdom says, save your money for a rainy day, right? Everyone says that. Everyone knows that you're supposed to save your money for a rainy day. And on the face of it, I think for most people that makes sense. The idea is that life throws you curveballs and you want to be as prepared as possible for those moments where you might lose your income or you might have some other kind of expense, emergency, whatever. And you want to be able to just dip into your stash and not have any interruption of your life whatsoever. And that's the logic behind saving for a rainy day. For those of us who have a hard time having and keeping money in savings, I believe, what worked for me is that we have to insert another step before that. We have to tweak that logic a little. And so I wanted to share an idea with you that I talk about in my book, Trust Yourself with Money. And the idea is that savings is cartilage. Savings is like cartilage in your financial body. Now, let me go back to the idea of saving for a rainy day. So, what is that really about? Here's how I look at it. So, what is a rainy day? Who says whether or not it's a rainy day? How do you determine whether or not it's a rainy day? How do you determine whether or not you have a good enough reason to crack open your savings, dip into it, and start messing with that balance that you've so painstakingly accumulated? At least, if you're anything like me, it's not like, who cares? I got savings. For me, saving money has been like, So who's to say that I have a good reason or a bad reason or, a great reason for cracking open that savings? What I found was that I was coming up with reasons left and right all the time for using my savings. And so what ended up happening was when things were good, I would have, some money in savings. And then when something went awry, I wouldn't. And it was really that simple. And that kind of hamster wheel was my life for decades. I talked a little bit yesterday in my last video about competing priorities. And competing priorities used to be such a problem for me. I used to just pile up money and then just sit on it, holding my breath, gritting my teeth, hoping nothing bad ever happened. And that's not a great strategy for having and keeping and accumulating money in savings. So I wanted to introduce this idea to you called saving as cartilage. The idea is that there is a portion of your savings that just doesn't get touched for any reason. Good reasons, bad reasons, any reasons. So how does this work? On the face of it, it's just like, well, just don't do it. Just don't spend the money. Now, those of us who have kind of struggled with this area know that that's not enough. It's not enough to just tell yourself, oh, I'm not going to spend the money. It's not enough to shame yourself. It's not enough to blame yourself. It's not enough to say, oh my God, how did I get here again? Why am I spending down to my last 2 nickels yet again? There have to be some other elements of logic and conversation that you have with yourself that will then allow you to recognize that that it's important to keep this cushion. One of those things is the idea that savings is like cartilage. So let's talk about it. If you don't have cartilage in your body, think about your joints and your bones, there's a crisis. And I think of savings in the same way. If I'm setting aside money to spend later on buying a new car or buying a house or anything, buying furniture or taking a trip, to me, that's not savings. That's money I'm planning to spend later. And that's, the kind of spending fund. I might name it. It doesn't matter what you name it. But the point is, it's not savings because you're planning to spend it. So the idea that saving is keeping, not spending, I know, especially because I've heard from some of my friends who are like, that's kind of obvious. That's what I've always done. But for me, it's like a big shift. So there's an idea that just do it. That's not enough. Like many people, I have had savings and I have watched it evaporate over and over and over again. So it's really a big deal for me personally, not only to have been out of debt for as long as I have, which is now more than 3 years, but to have savings for as long as I have, and to not spend down to $25 for as long as I have. It really has required a shift in perspective. When you decide, I need a cushion, and that cushion is staying in place no matter what. That cushion is my protection. It orients your thinking so differently, because when the competing priorities come up, instead of cracking open your savings like you normally would, you go, what else can I do? And I talked about that in my last video on competing priorities. The competing priority is an invitation to problem solve, to look at things differently, to turn your attention to other possibilities. And the way that I looked at it when I was, and still do, when I was in a situation where I was tempted to crack open my savings, which happens still all the time because it's just the way my brain works. Some people are really good savers, and I tip my hat to you, but some of us are spenders, and some of us have a kind of elaborate kind of routine that we go through to justify our behavior, to justify our spending decisions. So part of what I needed to learn how to do was interrupt those routines. One of the things I did was to tell myself, okay, this is off the table, period. Just period. So I'm just going to pretend it's not here, period. The other thing I did was I said to myself, savings is like cartilage. It's an act of self-care to keep it in place. So what other ideas can I come up with to solve these other problems, to pursue these other goals and desires that I have to spend later and keep the savings off the table? Another little game that I played with myself is I thought, okay, so if I go into a restaurant and I purchase a meal and I eat that meal, I can't come back the next day and say, could I have my $50 back? That money is gone, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that money being gone. So can I think about my savings in a similar way? Can I think about my savings as just being gone, being off the table? And those little mental games that I started to play with in my imagination, they helped me to start to just breathe into day after day, leaving my savings intact. It really did feel difficult because I had things that I needed to do with that money. I needed to pay bills and I needed to buy things. And the logic that I normally had was, well, I have this money just sitting here. Why not use it? Isn't that what it's for? So I had to shift a little and think, no, that's not what it's for. Having money and having money to keep is a completely different animal than having money for a rainy day. The other thing that I thought about was that if my plan is to spend the money later, I'm not calling it savings anymore, because saving is for keeping. Saving is for keeping. Savings is cartilage. It's different. So these little mental shifts started to help me to leave my money alone, to leave my money in place, and to be willing to do the uncomfortable, sometimes irritating work of engaging in problem solving when I would have really preferred to just keep it moving and crack open that savings and do what I wanted to do with it. Instead, I thought, okay, let me slow down. Let me get back to my paper and pen and scribble and really think about what other things are possible and what else is going on with me. Why am I here again? Why am I here again? And so that's what I do to this day. I stop when I'm kind of thinking about spending and thinking about having that moment where I'm just going to break open my savings again. And I say to myself, no, I don't want that bone on bone crisis feeling. I want to have that feeling of having a cushion in my life. If I am in a position where I have to spend my savings, it's information. It's important data. It's letting me know that A, I'm not earning enough right now, and I need to fix that. B, I'm maybe spending too much, and I need to fix that. Can I fix those things overnight? No, but I believe deeply in just asking the question. Just ask the question. Am I making enough? Do I even know how much I need? And that leads me to the topic I will talk about in the next video, which is record keeping. Some people hate it. I learned to love it because the data of my life, what I spend every day, what am I making during the month? I'm self-employed, so what am I making? How much do I need? Connecting the dots between what my behavior is like and what my desires and goals are about. Connecting those dots was really a game changer for me. And so in my next video, I'm going to talk about what it means and what it's like to collect the data of your life and how it can just kind of break everything open and take you to another level.